All right, let's go to some other issues. The national curriculum continues to remain, I think, wrongly on the periphery of this election. Neither of the major parties appears willing to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And in political terms, for the coalition, I reckon that's about as strategically stupid as it gets. I've said before on this program, every parent, every voter is concerned or should be concerned about what our children get taught at school, especially if the new Australian curriculum released today is anything to go by. In the woke classrooms, children will be taught about their eco-identity, whatever that is, the benefits of a vegetarian diet, and the so-called invasion of Australia. However, there are some really positive signs of change. The Holocaust back in the curriculum. Invasion Day, the Invasion Day theory will be counterbalanced with Australia's Christian and Western heritage, and consent education too mandatory for teenagers. Experts have also welcomed the updated guidelines for reading and writing, which make use of the most recent research on literacy. Joining me now is someone who knows this back to front, Jennifer Buckingham, Director of Strategy for Multi-Lit. Jennifer, thank you for your time. We've talked about this issue in the past, you and I. A great piece you wrote in The Australian today praising the revisions to the curriculum, particularly in relation to techniques for reading and writing. What's changed and why do you say it's an improvement?
Well, the big change has been that the remnants of the whole language approach have finally been removed from this version of the curriculum. So in the first version of the curriculum in 2012, there was a lot of that whole language approach in that first version. Some of it was taken out in the next version, which was published in 2015. And those of us who are interested in this sort of thing were hoping that the revised curriculum would finally get rid of those whole language elements and have a more evidence-based approach. Unfortunately, the draft did not do that, but very strong feedback from the community of reading researchers as well as teachers and parents has meant that the revised draft and the published version is much better.
Right, you might want to explain to people at home what this whole word or whole language teaching theory is. Most of my audience, myself included, grew up learning to read with phonics, sounding out words, learning sounds when you put particular words together, like TH giving you the th sound. That went out of vogue. In came what you're just talking about, that's been long condemned. Explain it for people if you can.
The whole language approach was based on the idea that reading is a social phenomenon, that children would just naturally learn how to read if they were exposed to enough books and language, and it was just something that they would work out. And a lot of that theory and approach was still in the previous version of the curriculum. But we know, based on a lot of scientific research over decades, that that's not the case, that for the majority of children, reading needs to be taught, and they need to be taught the mechanics of reading. They need to be taught that the written word, particularly in English, is quite complex, and that it's a code for speech. So they need to be taught how that code works. And once they know that, they can decode and read words accurately and fluently, and then they can go on to do all of the things that make reading enjoyable, read for comprehension and engage with all kinds of literature and text types. And so being able to read accurately and fluently at that level underpins everything else.
If I had a disappointment in this campaign on the issue of education, it would be that we've had this debate about teacher pay. We've talked about more money in education. That's the usual perennial. But we haven't talked about standards in education. We haven't talked about the values kids are being taught. We haven't talked, like you are now, about techniques in literacy and numeracy. That's got to be a concern that it hasn't been front and centre in a federal election, surely.
Well, the curriculum is directly related to standards. So making sure that we have a curriculum that is evidence-based and that is going to provide a good set of guidelines for teachers is going to make it much easier for them to teach well. And it's going to make it easier for the teachers who know what they're doing and know how to teach explicitly and using those evidence-based strategies to be able to meet those standards. So I think the curriculum certainly plays into that, as well as talking about initial teacher education, which of course is extremely important as well.
All right, Dr. Buckingham, I'll leave it there. Thank you for your time.